The Cold War, a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and Soviet Union for dominance over nuclear weapons and space exploration lasting from 1947 to 1999. Occurring after World War II, when Stalin decided to take half of Germany, claiming that the damage caused by Germany to his country Russia required more compensation than what was given, rather than just taking 1/4 of the country similar to American, Britain and France. With this action, conflict between parties arose over the agreement, and this started the Cold War. Majority of the causes for the Cold War were the conflicts of ideology between the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin, and America, multiple leaders, after World War II. The mutual distrust between these nations deepened the Cold War. The Soviet Union feared and were wary of America's nuclear firepower and refusal to share nuclear secrets, and they feared America attacking. America feared and were wary of the global spread of communism by the Soviet Union. This became known as the Red Scare. When Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister, remarked that an Iron Curtain had descended across Europe, it meant the Cold War did not only divide the continent into two camps, the communist and capitalist bloc, but it also brought a great divide as far as human well-being in both camps were concerned. The purpose of this documentary is to showcase the difference in well-being and living conditions during the Cold War between the divided nations, consisting of the Western capitalist bloc and the Eastern communist bloc. In order to provide you with the necessary information on the Cold War, we have scoured the web for information alongside a compilation of a variety of primary and secondary sources. These sources include first-hand photographs along with information provided by people who have experienced the Cold War firsthand or are very knowledgeable on the issue. What is communism? Communism is an economic and social system in which all property and resources are owned by a society and not an individual. The working class own everything, and what the collective produces as a whole is shared out according to needs. An example of communism would be working and completing manual labor, and all the money earned is taken by the state and is then redistributed to the whole community depending on the needs. What is capitalism? Capitalism is an economic system where the means of production are owned by private individuals. The economy runs through individuals who own and operate. An example of this would be an employer, man or woman, starting a company and employing others. The employee provides labor and the money is received by the employer, who then redistributes a specified amount to the employees whilst they take the excess sum. This documentary will showcase the effects of the Cold War under 3 of the 5 measures of human well-being, this being economic, environmental and social for both sides of the Iron Curtains, consisting of the Western capitalist bloc and Eastern communist bloc, which can be witnessed by the geographical source of a map on screen, with the red representing the communist bloc while the blue represents the capitalist bloc. Within the Western capitalist bloc during the Cold War, the economic impacts presented themselves in the form of funding for the country's military, satellite and nuclear weapons development. Both blocs rushed for the development of nuclear warheads. This was known as the arms race, and for the capitalist United States, this cost a minimum of $5.5 trillion in the form of a nuclear weapons program between 1940 and 1996. Negatives of this would be an increase in taxes, which placed financial pressure on the citizens of the country. Positives of the Cold War economically can be observed through job creation. This worked to decrease unemployment and increase work productivity. Within the capitalist Western bloc, environmental impacts showcased themselves with the destruction of various environments following nuclear testing by the United States, a country which is a part of the Western capitalist bloc. An example of this would be the atomic bomb codenamed Trinity being deployed at a test site in Alamogordo, New Mexico, in July 1945. This can be witnessed within the geographical source on screen, which is an image from July of 1945 of the mushroom cloud in the environment following Trinity's deployment. Other environmental impacts include the release of radioactivity following the creation of an American nuclear submarine base in Scotland. This radioactivity worked to destroy the environment, which is a necessity for human well-being. Social impacts brought about by the Cold War for the capitalist bloc include fear, tension and suspense for imminent doom from nuclear missiles which may or may not occur. The governments attempted to control this mass tension through political propaganda. This further resulted in even more negative social impacts, this being citizen distrust in the government. The previously stated effects of the economy, environment, and society apply to the Western capitalist bloc. These effects heavily differ from the effects on the Eastern communist bloc. Within the Eastern communist bloc, the economic effects of the Cold War presented themselves with many families struggling financially due to the notion of communism. Due to communism, all money earned was taken by the state and then redistributed according to needs. Though this didn't work effectively as not enough money was successfully distributed to the collective society. This resulted in people earning less than the amount they worked for, creating a bad economy overall. During the Cold War, the Eastern Bloc shared a similarity to the Western Bloc in regards to the environmental impacts. The Soviet Union, which is the head figure behind the Eastern Communist Bloc, was also rushing for nuclear dominance, and it's through the testing of nuclear missiles that the environment was harmed. In 1956 August, the Soviet Union conducted nuclear testing in Semipalatinsk in Kazakhstan. This resulted in more than 600 people being placed in hospitals for radiation sickness. This radioactivity lingered and over time would destroy the environment and habitats near. Within the geographical source on screen, we were able to view the Semipalatinsk nuclear test site in Kazakhstan. Social effects of the Cold War in the Eastern Communist Bloc present themselves in the lack of freedom to what can be viewed through media outlets alongside the inability to leave and enter the country. These effects were a result of the government intervention which worked to stop foreign ideologies from entering the country and control the people into believing communism is the answer to all. This can be showcased through the historical source on screen, being one of many propaganda posters, this one specifically from 1960 stating, "Forward to the victory of communism," which aims to paint a good picture of communism. Life during the Cold War for the Western capitalist bloc differed heavily from the Eastern Communist bloc. This difference can be expressed through the overall well-being of both people. Living conditions within the Western capitalist bloc consisted of citizens leading happy lives with access to food and entertainment, though there was also fear of nuclear warfare outbreak. One country in specific which expressed this happiness includes the US. They lived happy lives whilst also preparing for the worst, this being nuclear warfare. The government, in order to quell the masses' fear, implemented a plethora of actions in case of emergency throughout the country. This included practicing the duck and cover drills in schools. This is shown within the historical source on screen, being a poster from 1950s for the duck and cover technique. Unlike the Western Bloc, the Eastern Communist Bloc actually had bad living conditions, and this can be attributed to the ideology of communism and government intervention within everyday life. Communism led to many financially struggling families, and this is due to the fact that money wasn't distributed according to the amount of labor undertaken. The government's intervention presented itself in the form of censorship on what citizens are able to view through various media outlets. This resulted in no freedom, which is a major factor for good living conditions. The government also dictated who was able to leave and enter the country. This resulted in citizens living caged lives and limited resources for survival entering the country. This combination of government intervention and communist ideals led to contrasting living conditions when compared to the Western capitalist bloc. Censorship can be observed through various historical sources of communist propaganda. An example being the poster on screen from the 1950s, which when translated from Russian states, "We are peaceful people, yet our armored